And that really, it doesn't work in either case. I mean, in the case of the Earth, if the Earth was being, I mean, if the magnetosphere was being created by a dynamo effect of some sort, it wouldn't weaken over a period of time. I mean, it would be topped off continually. Okay, but we know that our own magnetosphere is weakening. At any rate,
I got you.
This is a Herbig-Haro object here. And the funny thing is that everything in the world of plasma physics is scalable, right? It's like you can produce things like this in a plasma bottle, and you can see these, these stars, these objects being formed up at these pinch points, right? I mean, it looks sort of like a shish kebab in which all the shishes are lit up, right? Or like a string of stereo ornaments, which is pulled taut. You've got, on a much larger scale, the exact same phenomena, which you would call a string of galaxies, right? Where you have like the things being formed at the points where currents cross each other, not like individual stars, but whole galaxies.
Yeah, I know. I saw that picture in one of your interviews. That you showed the universe, and it just looks like a gigantic wiring diagram.
You've got this unreal picture. I mean, what is that called? The local supercluster images, Laniakea.
Yes.
This is our local supercluster of galaxies. It's just unbelievable that they can put this together. Right? This is an electrical discharge. I mean, this whole thing, right?
Yep.
Every point of light in this picture is not an individual star. It's a whole galaxy, right?
Right.
The red dot that you see where my cursor is over here, where it says Milky Way.
Yeah.
That's the red dot represents the location of the whole Milky Way galaxy in this picture.
Right, and they used to call it the local supergroup, right? But they changed it now to Laniakea.
Cluster, yeah. They call it Laniakea, and that to me is, just the compute power that it takes to do something like that. And it's just completely fabulous, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing.
Spend $400 right now intelligently and come home with more compute power than anybody could have bought for any amount of money, even like 15 or 20 years ago. I mean,
unless it was the military, they're always about 40 years ahead of us.
Before my father died, I showed him, the Google Earth program. And he was just completely blown away. I mean, his hair stood straight up and fell over in his face. He said, my God, Teddy, I mean, what if Adolf Hitler had something like that in 1938? And I said, that's right. Dann würden wir diese kleine Gespräch auf Deutsch haben, then we'd be having this little discussion in German, right? I mean, like I say, they've got the good cameras now, which are, out there in space. I mean, they don't have to pick up information. In other words, we're not having our vision obscured by the Earth's own atmosphere anymore. We're getting just remarkable. And when you look at those other superclusters, there's all, in other words, this isn't the only supercluster out there. And they all look like just a connected web. It looks more like a spider's web than anything else. When you look at that kind of a picture, it shows all the connections between all the clusters of galaxies.
Yeah, I see a plant, Ted. The veins in a plant, almost the same.
Yeah. Oh, there's reasons for the similarity, right? I'll tell you a little bit more about Ganymede.
Okay.
So that they're trying to explain the intrinsic magnetosphere and also the low moment of inertia, right? And they're trying to, and they claim that there's a 600-kilometer deep outer mantle of salt water. They claim that the outer mantle of salt water provides the conductivity that you need, like for this dynamo effect, and also gives you the lack of weight near the surface of the planet, right? And Troy and I have our own version of what this outer mantle is, and it's not salt water. It's like there's almost no sodium around Ganymede, right? So it's like, Ganymede was a freshwater ocean world, right? The outer mantle is mostly pumice. Pumice is lighter than water. Pumice floats. Okay, this pumice is created by an intense Birkeland current between Jupiter and Ganymede early on, right?
Okay.
But you created this planet where you've got like, a dwarf star is basically a watery environment, so that you've got, water ending up on the largest of these Galilean moons, right? You've got a freshwater ocean world with like both anchored islands and coagulating floating bergs of pumice, luxuriant vegetation, warm. You've got everything in the, and, the intrinsic magnetosphere, which, like I said, was fused in, right? I mean, early on, right? In other words, the magnetosphere, both on Earth and Ganymede, are remnants, right? Mars almost certainly would have had a magnetosphere at one time, but it got blown out of it, just the catastrophes, right? The electrical arcing would have destroyed the magnetosphere on Mars. And so you've got everything in the world that you need for an ideal human environment, right? I mean, a believable human home world is what is it going to have, right? It's going to have to be bright, be it because of what we've gone over with, humans and dolphins have the smallest relative eye sizes of advanced animals, right? We don't have these dark world eyes like the Neanderthal or the dinosaurs had. So a human home world is going to have to be bright. It's going to have to be wet because of Elaine Morgan was absolutely correct in describing, like 100 different characteristics that we share with the aquatic mammals, right? And it's going to have to be safe. It's going to have to be safe both from cosmic radiation and from sea monsters. There can't be any sharks and sea monsters in a world like that. And we figure all of that was, Ganymede would have been your ideal human world. Now, what all does Elaine Morgan talk about? I mean, there's several things that sort of stick out. Like I said, she provides a list. The way that humans use fat, right, is what you see with the aquatic mammals, right? It's like, you don't get that with land animals. Voluntary control over breathing, right? We take that for granted. Monkeys and apes don't have it, right? Now, that's, this is an adaptation for swimming and diving, right? For swimming underwater. Okay, being able to control your breathing. And, that's the only reason that they can't teach gorillas and chimpanzees to speak English or French. They don't have they can vocalize, and they do, but they don't have voluntary control of the breathing. They can teach them deaf signs perfectly well, and some of the chimps and some of the gorillas, or at least one of the gorillas that they've taught to sign, have on several occasions taken human IQ tests and checked out, achieved scores of 75 to 90, right?
That's amazing.
That's adequate for half the jobs in the world. Not only is it adequate for half the jobs in the world, it's better than average for some whole countries. Like, what do you think average IQ is for Somalia?
About 60.
68. 2 points below what you call retarded, right? I mean, that's story in itself, right? But comes from inbreeding and from, bad habits. But
so basically, I'm just trying to get this picture now. You got Jupiter, which could have been a brown dwarf, but it could also have been a hot Jupiter within the Goldilocks zone there of the sun. The Earth was going around Jupiter, or within.
Not the Earth. The Earth was always, the Earth at some very, very late point got passed off to.
Oh, I meant Ganymede. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about where we live now. But Ganymede was orbiting Jupiter until the Saturn system came in. Sun and Ganymede and Jupiter were already an established system that you call the antique system, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. But we still had night and day, right? Or was it bright 24 hours a day?
That's a good question. Give me a second.
I say that because, at night we have certain things that happen, like endorphins help us fall asleep. And
what I've got here is one of Troy's pictures. Troy is an artist, right? It's like he's got a picture of Jupiter here, the red, the reddish dark star, and then the sun.
See. Yes.
distance, and then you've got like a freshwater ocean world sitting here with anchored, with islands and floating bergs of pumice.
Mm-hmm.
That was the human home environment, right? Now, let me tell you a little bit more about Elaine Morgan. It's like voluntary control over breathing.
Yeah.
Face-to-face sex.
Second,
That's
I've
something
never
that
heard the voice of
animals generally
experience.
don't do, right? Humans do that. There's a number of other things like that, right? It's like, not having a reasonable sense of smell. Like I say, I mean, an aquatic mammal doesn't require much of a sense of smell, whereas for a land prey animal to not have any more of a sense of smell than humans have,
Yeah.
fatal. That just doesn't work at all. And Neanderthals and interbreeding, right? I said there's no way that humans could be descended from hominids. The question is, have we ever interbred with hominids? The answer is no.
Mm.
For any human, what you're assuming is that like some Neanderthal male is going to rape a woman, going to capture some woman and rape her, and then instead of cooking her and eating her like afterwards, is somehow going to keep her alive long enough to bear a cross-species child, and then raise that child to reproductive age and then have him or her breed back into human populations without anybody catching on. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what is you have a theory for how they crossed over without using spaceships? Let's hear that.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's
How
like,
they came from Ganymede to the Earth.
yeah, the first humans on the, Cro-Magnon man, right? The
Mm-hmm.
earliest example of which could easily be the people that, the ancestors of the people we find living around Australia.
Yeah.
Some people now are talking about an out of Australia theory, which to me makes more sense than an out of Africa theory.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. It's like I would expect the people living on Ganymede to have looked sort of like native Australians. Okay, it's like, you've got an ocean world which is like closer to the sun than we are now. That's also got radiant energy coming from this, what's left over of this dwarf star. And I don't think that like light skin is not going to be an advantage, right? I would expect them to be dark skinned.
Mm-hmm.
I don't regard races as being very meaningful. It's like, we seem to have the two human groups on the earth. We've got the group which is descended from Adam and Noah, right, which I refer to as Bible antediluvians. And then you've got the descendants of Cro-Magnon man, pre-Adamites, right? And it appears to me to be the case either one of these groups is capable of producing any color or any feature that you would ever see. Look, it's like both the Spanish Basque and the native Australians appear to be Cro-Magnon descendants, right? And the one you would call black, the other would call white. What does that tell you?
I don't know. It's kind of confusing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is. But what I
They
think
come from two different places, maybe?
now, what it tells me is that, like, you shouldn't worry about racial differences, right?
We make way too much out of it.
The two groups, the two main groups are genetically all but the same, right? They're easily interbreedable.
Yes.
Whereas, when you talk about humans and Neanderthals interbreeding, then they're not interbreedable, right? It's like mules and donkeys and horses are much closer to each other
Yeah,
than
that's
species.
species.
The Neanderthal and all mules are sterile. Okay,
Right.
so that doesn't work. Now you ask, like, how would you ever get 1 or 2% of our genes, which we would share with Neanderthals?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you how that would happen. It's like they say you are what you eat, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you what's going to happen. I mean, the first experience early humans ever had with Neanderthals was going to be watching friends and family members get killed and eaten by them, right? Eating a Neanderthal is basically, that has been killed in a battle, is just going to be like sending a message to the Neanderthals in their own language, right? Now, what I picture having happened is like, you're going to get some Cro-Magnon war party, like traipsing around in the Swiss Alps around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. They get in the afternoon. They get into some kind of a pitched battle with some Neanderthal family,
Mm-hmm.
and an hour later, they're sitting around. You got like 12 or 15 dead Neanderthals lying around in the ice and snow, and one of these guys said, "Man, it's been a hell of a day, right? I mean, it's like." I'm so hungry I could eat just about anything right now, and I'm sure as hell too tired. I'm not going out hunting right now. What the hell is there to eat around this place? What do you think they're going to eat that night?
Yeah, they're going to eat that thing that they just killed.
Yeah. Now, do you think they're going to do the world's best job of cooking them under those conditions?
No, probably not.
No.
You know, so
Okay,
you're
look,
saying by eating them raw, because playing devil's advocate for a
they're
second,
going to try to cook
someone's going to
them.
say, well, we don't have cow in us and we eat steaks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
you
you
know.
are right. I mean, if there actually are, it's a big if. You know, Troy doesn't believe there even are. If there actually are any DNA, any Neanderthal, if there actually is any Neanderthal DNA in modern humans, then that's how it would have gotten there. They say
Yeah,
that we share 60% of our DNA with bananas, right? And what do you think that comes from?
eating them.
It either it either comes from something resembling object-oriented design, or it comes from eating bananas, right? And it
Oh,
probably,
okay,
I
yeah.
would guess that the banana was a common food item on Ganymede, right?
Which happened to be healthy.
The,
And
the
see,
human, the original human diet would have been some combination of shellfish and fruit.
mhm.
Then they would have learned very quickly to make it ladles and nets and whatever it took to kill fish and catch fish, right? So that like shellfish and fruit, and see that's another kind of a funny thing, right? It's like humans do not swim as efficiently as other aquatic mammals. Certainly nowhere near as efficiently as seals or dolphins do. So humans expend a great deal, to swim or to be spending 15 hours a day in water, burning up an awful lot of energy. And the energy for all of that was coming from this fruit component of the original diet.
Yeah.
This is where humans, this is where the human taste for sweet things comes from. Okay, it has to be. We're not spending 15 hours a day in water anymore. And however much energy we get or we burn doing anything else during the day, it's nothing compared to that. We still have this taste for sweet things.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially at night.
Yeah, and then you've got this, the fact that we've got all these refined sugars. We've got a big problem here. This is the American diet. Remember I said if you really know anybody that's a hypochondriac, it's like, this would be the most major thing I would tell them to worry about, the American diet. But at any rate,
It's easy to get fast food. You know, it's hard to eat healthy.
all right.
It's expensive too.
The fact that we share 60% of our DNA with bananas either indicates, object-oriented design, or it indicates humans eating bananas in large quantities. That's what I think it represents. Like I say, I mean, any DNA, any Neanderthal DNA that modern humans would have, that's what that represents. It doesn't represent crossbreeding. Let me show you this.
Wanted to talk about that water bridge too. I was trying to bring that up.
Neanderthal realities. And I created this group just so that somebody doing a Facebook search on the word Neanderthal could have some chance of turning up something other than disinformation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you've got 3 or 4 or 5 other Facebook groups, whose titles include the word Neanderthal, which are basically just fonts of disinformation and bad information, right? I mean, just scientific yuppieism. Yeah, yuppieism poisons science. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see this is what a Neanderthal actually looked like. I've had a problem ever getting these header images for Facebook groups right. This is as close as I was able to come for this one. At any rate, the two groups are related. If you go to YouTube, right, and type in water bridge.
Missing Michigan copper, Greg J. All right.
Yeah.
I got the front page.
Here, floating water bridge between 2 beakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to, you can check this out or include as much of that as you want.
Yeah.
You've got current being run between 2 beakers of water. When Cro-Magnon man first came to Earth, he was culturally sophisticated, but he was not technologically sophisticated. He was using atlatls to kill fish, right? Now, if Cro-Magnon man was capable of space vehicles, then he would also have been capable of spinning reels, right? He wouldn't have needed the atlatl to catch fish with.
Yeah, that is interesting.
You understand what I'm saying? There's no
Yeah.
reason believe that that Cro-Magnon man got into an airplane or a spaceship or anything like that and flew here, or that anybody brought him here. It's like what you had happen was what Troy describes in, let me get back to Troy over here, timeless age in a purple haze, right? This is this is the description. Basically, Troy claims, and this makes perfect sense to me, that the southern system, the Neptune, Saturn, Mars, Earth system, didn't just fly straight into the sun system. It walked in on a spiral, and on this spiral approach, there were at least one point of near capture before the final capture, right? So you have this point of near capture, which you can see in the picture here, right? And after this near capture event, the Saturnian system spiraled back into deep space for a while longer, like several thousand more years or several tens of thousands of more years, right? At the point of near capture, the two things on the outside of each system, the two largest rocky bodies within each of these systems would have been Earth and Ganymede. Those would have been the two that came closest to each other, and you would have had, an electrical connection being created between the Earth and Ganymede. And you would have had this exact thing that Don Scott is talking about, like with what you call a water bridge, right?
Yeah.
You get a bridge of water. In this case, you're seeing between two beakers of water, but in the case of Earth and Ganymede, it would have been between the oceans of the two worlds, right? So you would have had these people standing around, like playing beach volleyball or trying to catch fish with paddles or nets, and playing with the seals and the dolphins, when all of a sudden you get this vortex opening up in the sky.
Yeah.
And some very large number of these people and other aquatic mammals would have been sucked into this thing. Now, did all of them survive that? No, probably not. I would bet heavily against it, right? But some of them apparently did. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Watching that reminds me of siphoning gas. You ever siphon gas? Once you get it started, then it just goes.
Not recently.
No, when I was a kid,
Yeah, back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it used to go on in the 1950s.
You got to do it perfect so you don't get it in your mouth because it tastes like crap.
Yeah.
It was like getting gas for the lawnmower or something,
Yeah, well, it's like you could really mess yourself up if you get stupid enough.
Oh, yeah. That's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this is the answer to how humans got from Ganymede to Earth.
I think it's solid.
Like I say, you have these first humans that transferred here, and there's no way to really put a date on it, right? It's like some period of time. Every indication is that the indigenous peoples of the Earth, what I call Cro-Magnon descendants, have been on Earth longer than the rest of us, than the Bible antediluvians. The people descended from Adam and Noah. I figure probably most of us, right? It's like you've got a situation where there's a lot of room for interpretation. I mean, a lot of the material I read indicates that Cro-Magnon man would have come here like 50 or 60,000 years ago. Some people believe the native Australians were here 60,000 years ago. That would be an extreme figure. I think the most normal figure that you're going to see says 45,000 or thereabouts. Okay, that's a long period of time. Troy and I, like I said, we haven't answered every question, right? We haven't answered every question people are going to have about human origins. Some of the questions which we have answered are very big ones. Where do the first humans in our system come from?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the relationship between humans and hominids? The basic answer is there isn't any relation. The only relationship between humans and the Neanderthal is like similar design, right? The fact that our DNA is as similar as it is, to that of apes or hominids, indicates to me that you're looking at something like object-oriented design. You're looking at a designer who didn't want to be reinventing wheels all the time. Understand how object-oriented programming and software development work, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay, C++, Eiffel, Smalltalk, those kinds of programming languages. We have classes and subclasses, right, to where, you can see this in computer games, right, or like in flight simulators, or some kind of a game where you've got like, a generic class that represents an airplane, right, and then you have subclasses that represent different kinds of airplanes. World War II flight simulation game, right, Aces of the Pacific, separate classes, subclasses for, like for Corsairs or F6s or for Japanese Zeros or for P-38s, P-51s, whatever, right, and then there's sort of a cascading system of information, right, and I believe that that's what we see in a living world, right?
Yeah.
Thing which says that, like I say, Plato understood well enough that there was a difference between God with a capital G and these pantheon gods. It's like, our living world is all, you've got this information code, DNA, RNA, which is the basis for all living things, right? The basis for all life that we know anything about. And the information code itself appears obviously enough to be the work of a single pair of hands, right? Most people refer to that single pair of hands, the owner, as God, right? Whereas when you get to some kind of a point like, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 years ago on this planet, then what you see doesn't look like the work of a single pair of hands anymore. In other words, there's no reasonable way to believe that a supposedly omniscient God is going to need to go through 40 or 50 species of horses or elephants to get to the one that he wants, There's no reason to believe that a well-meaning God is going to create the creatures of Pandora's box, fighting flies, chiggers, ticks, fleas, hornets, wasps. In other words, I don't see any reason to want to worship whoever created those things. You understand what I mean, right? It's like Cro-Magnon man did some of the work of cleaning this planet up when he got here. He eliminated the hominids, right? He eliminated several other kinds of things which posed unacceptable dangers to humans. We just about have the power to finish the job at this point, or at least if we don't now, we will within 50 years. We could get rid of the creatures of Pandora's box, we could get rid of mosquitoes, we could get rid of, they almost did that in the 1950s, right? I mean, DDT.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they all but had malaria and polio wiped off the planet. They had bed bugs wiped out of the South 48, the United States. I mean, they had all kinds of problems, basically either under, lice, right? We've got all these creatures whose morphology is limited only by the writer's imaginations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they have 5 limbs, 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head.
One-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I believe that you will never find, right? You see, it's like what we're actually finding doesn't look like that at all. What we're finding on Mars and what Troy's and my investigation indicates was the case on Ganymede is very much more like what a Christian or some other religious person would anticipate. In other words, the same DNA, RNA information scheme, the same basic plan for large animals, 4 limbs, a spinal column, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, either teeth.
Endoskeleton.
I'm sorry?
Endoskeleton instead of an exoskeleton.
Yeah. Right. Insects are different, of course.
Yeah. It's a good thing that insects don't grow as big as humans, or that'd be a whole nother problem.
Oh yeah, that could be a bad problem. That's.
Now I've heard you talk about that giant bird that you see a picture of a guy standing by. I have the picture. You were saying that these wings that, and that was an excellent point, was that you don't see ostriches dragging 50-foot wings around.
Oh no, no. The large birds that survived did so, by having the wings become vestigial. They can never fly again after the change in gravity.
Yes.
The moth, the ostrich, right?
Yeah, but you think about them giant pterodactyls flying. Our atmosphere had to be something completely different than what it is
gravity.
now.
I don't think it involved the atmosphere. I think it involved gravity.
Gravity. Okay. the air could have been thicker or something, but it involved gravity. So our gravity had to have been 2/3 less than it is now, right?
At least, okay, I think it was probably more attenuation. It has at least a 3-to-1 attenuation, but I believe it's probably more than that.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the 3-to-1 attenuation arises from requiring that the ultrasar would be able to stand with roughly the same level of effort as the biggest elephants that we know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you had creatures that we only have footprints for, which, the footprints indicate a creature a couple of 100 feet long, right? That would be bigger and heavier still than the ultrasar, right? We've got the seismosar, which they do have bones for, which, appears to have been like about 150 feet long. That could be your whole defensive team on a football team, right? I mean, that would be,
Yeah.
you couldn't get around him, and stay in bounds.
What is that big bird they got hanging? What is that? Is that some kind of?
It's an Argentinian teratorn.
And those birds still exist, or are they extinct?
Oh, no, those are long extinct. The teratorn, you're talking about a 25-foot wingspan. You're talking about, like 150 to 250 pounds.
So
Okay.
that kind of tells me that Earth's gravity changed more than once.
It may have collapsed in stages. Right. Now, let me tell you about the biggest birds that can fly in our world today. It's like, you've heard about albatrosses. I mean, the albatrosses have their own set of problems. I mean, they're the biggest bird that can take off and land anywhere near decently, right? It's like a lot of albatross landings look like badly controlled crashes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Takeoff attempts, they have to be faced straight into the wind to take off, but they're a stupid bird and they don't know that, right? So a lot of their takeoff attempts end in failure.
Yeah.
So they'll flap until they sit there and fall over exhausted, and then float around in the water and give it 20 minutes and try it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Call them goonie birds, right?
Yeah.
There's the other thing which gets up to 20 or 25 pounds and flies is the Berkut eagle, which is the big hobby of people like Genghis Khan or, Mongols and,
Yeah.
people from.
When did the dodo bird exist?
When?
Yeah. How long have they been extinct?
They've been extinct for a couple of 300 or 400 years. I don't know, but it's like, that's only within the age of European exploration the dodo became extinct.
Oh, okay.
They were killed off by Europeans, right?
Ah, okay.
Now,
I always wondered why they called them dodo
let me
birds.
tell you about this guy that brought a Berkut back to Wales. Like, the book was called The Bird of Jove, right?
Okay.
Name. Sam Barnes, okay? He brought a Berkut eagle. This was like one of England's top falconry artists this is, you still have the Soviet Union in full bloom, right? It's like 1972 or thereabouts that this happened. The guy goes out on one of these tours of the Soviet Union and then gets lost, right? And wanders, he gets lost from the tour that he's supposed to be on and ends up out there in Kyrgyz country.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes across one of these Kyrgyz Khans who has a Berkut, which is as big as Berkuts ever get, which is around 24, 25 pounds. And, more normal for Berkut is like 15 pounds or thereabouts, right? What all do they use Berkuts for? It's like they use Berkuts to hunt with, kill deer, you got to understand that an eagle like that, its powers to kill things are disproportionate to its size, right? The bird that Sam Barnes brought back to Wales had talons that were 11 inches across. He tried to teach this bird to catch footballs in the air. He gave up on it after she popped 2 NFL footballs, splowing, right? Yeah, splowing. They use Berkuts to kill wolves. Now, Mongols and Kyrgyz people and Kazakhstani, people in that part of the world raise sheep for a living, right? And, wolves are a problem, and you would get some wolf go out and kill a sheep or something. And you come out with rifles, and the wolf is going to be running over hill and around dale. You're not going to get a reasonable shot with a rifle. But the Berkut eagle can just go out there and get him, right? And I mean, for a 10 or 15 pound berkut, you know, a wolf could be you know, I mean, the wolf might win that once in a while. You know what I mean? It's not guaranteed that the eagle's going to win. Whereas for a bird the size, it's like, you found this 25-pound berkut that had flounce or something like that, right? I mean, they didn't have any cure for in the Soviet Union at the time. It was going to die, so it's like the, you know, the Kyrgyz Khan gave the bird to Sam Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
And what he told him was that since time immemorable, you know, the people in that part of the world have been raising berkuts for size and strength, right? And 24, 25 pounds is as big as they could get them. So beyond that, it's like that they couldn't take, you know, in other words, you get a bird up any bigger than that, he's going to try to eat some sort of a heavy meal. He's not going to be able to get back in the air anymore, and then a wolf might get him. Or some other, you know.
That makes sense.
Not going to be able to survive, right? So it's 24, 25 pounds is the limit. Beyond that, like I say, they begin to encounter too many problems. That's your super golden eagle out from, you know, high Asia.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read a couple of stories. Now, I know it's probably fiction, but I've read a couple of stories where they're saying that some sort of pterodactyl still lives in some parts of Texas, and that they actually...
Look, it's like, when you talk about pterodactyls, that was a 40 or 50 pound animal. It's like the big pterosaurs are called Big Bend pterosaurs or Texas pterosaurs.
Yeah.
Pterosaur. Okay. Again, like I said, Sam Barnes, the guy, I'm sorry, that's not the guy I'm thinking of. Sam Langston,
Okay.
Texas, right? Paleontology, when he first had bone, you know, Texas pterosaur bones, was going to put them together with a 60-foot wingspan. He didn't have much in the way of wing bones. That's what he did have indicated, right? And the aeronautical engineering group at the school came down on him. But listen here, friend, it's like, you know, out of the goodness, you're making us look stupid enough when you put something like that together, like with a 40-foot wingspan. We'll let you do that, you know, out of the goodness of our hearts, right? We're not going to let you put something like that together with a 60-foot wingspan. You make us look like the fools of the earth. Some people have tried to explain the large flying creatures by way of a thicker atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a couple of problems with that. Experts have said that even a gliding creature trying to hold his wings, you know, straight in a turn would snap his wing bones, you know, like something like in our own atmosphere, right, under present gravity. A thicker atmosphere would just make that problem worse. It wouldn't make it better. Okay?
Yeah.
And
okay.
there's another problem that says that, you know, some of these people are proposing an atmosphere which would be close to being buoyant, right?
Yeah.
At that point, you've got a gigantic problem. It says you've still got to breathe this near buoyant atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, what's going to happen inside your body's cells when you start trying to breathe, you know, air which is that thick? Well, it's going to be like the redneck physics experiment where they pour a container of liquid oxygen onto a barbecue grill. Did you ever see that?
No, I never have.
Oh, give me a second. Let me see if we can find that. Only that's what's going to be happening inside the cells of your body. Okay, that's not a formula for happiness.
No. So it had to have been the electrical condition of the Earth was different.
Gravity. Okay, it's like, you know, the only thing that explains any of this stuff is a different gravity, right? And like I say, I don't like the idea of expanding Earth theories. I don't like the idea of this near buoyant atmosphere. It's like the only thing that's really going to help any of these problems is gravity, and the attenuation of gravity was due to this much greater surface charge of the planet. Liquid oxygen barbecue.
Mm.
Let me see if that turns anything up. Oh yeah, lighting a charcoal grill with liquid oxygen. Like I said, this is your great. Yeah, here, hold my beer and watch this, right?
Act 2.
Okay, you're spilling the oxygen.
Holy smokes. That guy better get out of the way.
Does that look wonderful enough?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, would you want that going on inside the cells of your body?
No, no, no.
No.
Okay, so yeah, because I'm just trying to think of what would it be about gravity that would make us more prone to being telepathic, you know, that's which is going to be our next segment.
It's not going to involve gravity. Okay, it's a separate phenomenon.
Okay.
The thing which relates the two is this question of the surface charge, right? It's the question of static electricity and a white noise environment, which that would have created.
What is white noise environment? I never heard that term before.
It's a good question. There's, like I say, you have white noise machines, right? You know, which you can buy, which is sleep aids, right? You have like kinds of experiments which Dean Radin does, which they call Ganzfeld experiments. Typically involve white noise chambers of rooms. Right now, a person left in a white noise chamber for more than about 30 minutes, and the way I've heard it, will start to hallucinate.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not like, I mean, like don't try it at home if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Right. You get into some weird stuff here. It's like, I may have gone as far as I can go right now, like without starting to cough or.
Yeah.
You know,
We've been on for 2 hours right now, so that's
speaking. It's starting to go.
Yeah, it's okay. We're at the end anyway. Yeah, that was good. Now our next installment will be talking about the telepathic age. I can't wait for that one.
That's the most interesting part of the whole deal. And
yeah.
I'm thinking, and again, this is where I get off and start to lose the Thunderbolts group, right? The things which I regard as the most interesting aspects of the whole business are, you know, taboo subjects.
Yeah, well, we have no taboo subjects here. We can talk about all of it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
You might be the person to try to put together we need some kind of a conference, people who understand all the different aspects of Mars together in one room.
Okay.
On the internet, and there's a thing which you should look at, which is called Zoom.com, ZOOM.
Okay, I will.
Zoom.com is the networking, you know, it's the conferencing system that Rex Bear uses, you know, Leak Project.
Yeah, I watched your interview on there.
I was sort of impressed with that. But
yeah, he also interviewed Walt Thornhill just recently, not too long ago. I saw. It was good. Yeah. He's into the Anunnaki pretty heavy. You know?
Yeah. Like I said, what I normally tell people about Anunnaki is that, like, you know, I would advise people to watch these videos of Lloyd Pies up to the point at which he starts talking about Anunnaki and then turn them off. Lloyd came to the same conclusion that Troy and I have, you know, without knowing anything about Ganymede or anything like that. You know, Lloyd Pye came to the conclusion that humans had to be from somewhere else, right? That we simply would have been hideously ill adapted to the conditions on this planet 40 or 50,000 years ago. Hominids, he said you could look at hominid remains and tell that they were adapted to this world where the humans aren't, right?
Yeah, I know there was something I wanted to bring up and it's kind of escaping my mind. Was it wrong? The Palladians, you know, being at war with the Anunnaki. It's good theater.
Yeah.
But I don't really see any proof of anything like that. I know a lot of people want to say that there was a nuclear war so many thousands of years ago or something, and that's why we have dead parts of the Earth. But when they nuked Japan, it didn't die.
No, still living in Saki.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know.
In fact, you know, if you look at a picture of Nagasaki today and Detroit today, I mean, and somebody told you that we won some kind of a major war, you know, cities that got bombed 50 years, you know, 70 years ago, then, you know, I mean, I don't know if anybody would believe you.
I know. That's our inner cities are pretty bad, but although I gotta give Detroit credit. I went down there last summer to watch a ball game, and Man, they have really built it up. They've invested some money in it. It's looking good.
I'd like to see them come back, right? But what I believe they're going to have to do, they're going to have to start making, this may take changes in government regulations and rules, I don't know, but they're going to have to start making cars that people can afford and that would want.
I
And,
agree 100%. The silver price is ridiculous.
In 2016, I was reading this, like a couple of articles that indicated one of the things that happened, that affected the election was the average American family cannot afford, more than half of all American families cannot afford the least expensive new car being sold in America, like the little Nissan Versa.
Mm-hmm.
But, here's what this tells me. It's like, the car that I would want if I was ever going to buy another new car. I want something to be bought like for less than $10,000. I would want something which was modern, had a modern engine with modern, ignition control, right? And I would like to have one of these new engines, like what they call the OPOC engines, like the Acadies. I don't know if you've ever seen. Have you ever seen graphics of the Acadies engine?
No, I haven't.
An engine the size of a basketball would power most cars.
Now that's what we need, and I just can't. I'm dumbfounded as to why they
Yeah.
can't come up with a car for $12,000 or
There's
ten. Like,
another thing. Look. I mean, there's another thing which makes no sense at all. It's like the typical small car of 1958 was like, was like 500 or 600 or 700 pounds lighter than the typical small car today.
it's like a roller skate that you can drive.
No, it's not like a roller skate. It's like Tata. Nexus, Tata. This would be
Oh, I've seen those cars. Yeah.
next
Oh, that's right. Do you live in East Texas or West Texas?
east. Okay, it's like I live about 40 miles from the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, there's someone who has a Tesla tower out there.
Okay, and that's not in East Texas. Where is that? That's going to be up by Waco somewhere.
I thought it was East
You've got a
Texas.
company that was reproducing the Tesla tower and Tesla's scheme for trans. I'll see if I can find that and send it
Yeah,
to you.
there's a video on it. I got a video I can send to you. It's really good. It's by this couple.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll have to send that link. Yeah, well, Ted, I guess it's probably time to say goodbye. We've been on for 2 hours, and I know your voice is tired. So
Yeah.
I got a lot of material to work on here. I'm still working on the first one, and I'm gonna put them out in like segments. But you'll get a better idea when I
Let's give it a
know
day
what
and
it
then get
is.
back to you later in the week. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I had a very interesting talk. Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
And I just
All
love
right,
picking. Definitely, it's going to be great. I just know it. And always good to talk to you.
Okay. Let me
Yeah.
catch
So
up.
we'll talk again.
Okay. Like I said, I'll give it a few days here.
Okay,
I'll
Ted.
catch up with you a bit later. Take care.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye bye. A few years back, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for whatever reason, redid Carl Sagan's Cosmos. I didn't really find it all that entertaining, but I did watch the first episode. At that time, I was beginning to doubt things. I didn't know it at the time, but I took away a nice nugget of knowledge and stowed it in the capillaries. At that time, it was the only game in town. And I took away one thing with me from the first show, and I never saw any of the other ones. He stated close to the beginning of the show, probably within the first 15 or 20 minutes, human beings' eyes, our eyes, were made to see underwater, and that's why we can't see as good as we should. That would make sense only if we were aquatic apes. That would line up with Ted and Troy's thesis. You're saying it's there. One thing that I don't understand about Google, if you Google Cro-Magnon Man, you notice one thing right away. They do their best to make Cro-Magnon Man look his worst, while they do their best to make Neanderthal look their best. I don't get that. Cro-Magnon was human, and they should look like this. At least that's what I think. Homo neanderthalis take a dumpus. I like how they pass out the homo names to make it sound complicated. A scientist once said they traded in the truth for words and then talk about the words. Anyways, Neanderthal is not human. That's how I see it. Cro-Magnon just seemingly appeared out of the blue. There really wasn't anything before or any evidence of anyone who could have made those magnificent paintings in those caves. And they don't even really let the public in to see them. You'd think it would take an awful lot for them to turn down a gold mine, because that would bring in tourists from all over the world. It gives one the distinct impression that they have something to hide. It doesn't make sense. I've often mused wondering if Neanderthal was Bigfoot, but I guess that's not so. It could have worked though. But I just wanted to say thank you to Theodore Holden for spending 2 hours with me to explain his Ganymede theory. I've looked at it and studied it, and it's pro-electric universe. It's pro-Saturn theory. That's two things that I agree with. It's pro-Herbig-Haro object creates planets and stars. The only leap, and it was a good one because no one else did it before, was they needed to ascertain if it wasn't the Earth, what planet was it? And instinctively they went to Jupiter and found that Ganymede has oxygen and a magnetosphere. So the only leap I see is what happened to that Herbig-Haro object when it dissolved. Would they have scattered like buckshot? Or would they have tended to stay together? And right now, unless I learn something new along the way, I don't see them scattering. I see them sticking together like Ted said, a shish kebab. That's exactly what Shoemaker Levy 9 did. You know, it was the same thing on a smaller scale. Like he said, it's all scalable. But anyways, I wish them both the very best. I had a good time. And even if you don't agree with their theory, there was a lot here to digest, and I hope you got something from it. I have a few videos that are pretty close to each other, and I'd like to take a poll and have you guys choose. I want to do another.
The influence of the sun's heliosphere, that is, into the reaches of interstellar space, where most free-floating brown dwarf stars are found, its magnetosphere would most likely take on more opaque properties, especially when spotted by optical telescopes. The effect would be to massively increase the visible size of Jupiter without increasing its mass. Probably the most startling effect of this hypothetical scenario is that Jupiter's 4 major rocky moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto, would all be optically hidden inside this opaquely glowing magnetosphere. Effectively, if Jupiter's energy output was scaled up to that of a brown dwarf star, then its moons would essentially take on the status of being planets. Planets that are encapsulated inside this cocoon-like bubble that would optically hide them from the greater cosmos. That brown dwarf stars might have their own planets is a concept contradicted by modern scientific models for planetary formation. Theoretically, there is simply not enough material or mass in a brown dwarf star's circumstellar disk to allow for planetary formation by accretion. That is according to current thinking. Yet, in a sensational and recent development, 3 Earth-like planets have been found orbiting the star TRAPPIST-1 some 40 light-years away. As already noted, because most brown dwarf stars glow in the cooler spectrum, they are very difficult to spot by optical means. The use of radio and infrared astronomy techniques are better suited to spotting brown dwarfs, but the powerful magnetospheres surrounding these objects can disguise their true size and mass, and may be hiding many terrestrial-like moons from observers. According to the electric universe model, it is most likely that a plasma bubble or a plasma sheath will form around the magnetosphere of an interstellar brown dwarf star, making it even more difficult to assess its actual size and mass, and also adding to the opaqueness surrounding such an object and any moons orbiting it. Because the electric universe model accepts the existence of electrical fields in space, it is perfectly feasible that plasma, a fourth state of matter that makes up over 95% of the visible universe, will form a protective sheath around any electrically charged free-floating object in space. This protective plasma sheath will take on variable opaque properties when electrically excited by the divergences in interstellar electrical fields, and this will add to the visible size of the object it is surrounding. This is in accordance with Irving Langmuir's discoveries in the electrical sciences and the nature of plasma, and it helps explain the observable variances between the sizes and masses of brown dwarf stars. According to electric universe principles, we actually see this effect in action when lesser electrically charged comets enter into the Sun's own stronger electrical field from the depths of space and begin to glow brightly while seemingly massively increasing in size. Mainstream science outrightly rejects this and claims this is the effect of sublimating ice from the comet's surface as the Sun's light heats it up. However, electric universe theory points to cometary fireworks as being electrical in nature, as the comet's overwhelmed electrical field reacts to the Sun's far stronger electrical output, the so-called solar wind. In short, the growing number of large brown dwarf stars and so-called rogue gas giants sighted in interstellar space are most likely plasma-sheathed objects with large, dense, and fast-rotating cores at their centers, and possibly come complete with one or more moons orbiting those cores, but all hidden within the encapsulating plasma bubble. Again, if we were to render Jupiter's magnetosphere opaque, then all its own major moons would be hidden from us within this vast bubble. Jupiter, for all intents and purposes, would take on the look of any brown dwarf star known to exist today. A curious factor in the ongoing search for exosolar systems like our own is that we have yet to discover an alien solar system even remotely configured like our own. Surprisingly, to mainstream science, our solar system appears to be the odd one out, and current theories that demand the formation of gas giant planets at orbital distances matching our own gas giants are increasingly shown to be inaccurate with the discovery of so-called hot Jupiters. Hot Jupiters are gas giant planets with orbits far too close to their host stars.
Groovy.